Welcome back to the Azure Static Web App series. In this video we're going to carry on where we left off and we're going to build some more static web apps, but this time rather than vanilla JavaScript we're going to use the popular React JavaScript library. So stay tuned. So Hawaiian shirt coder here again, and in this video we're going to have a look at Azure Static Web Apps with the React library, which is probably at the time of writing the most popular JavaScript front-end SPA library that's available. So I thought this would be a good one to show you. So in this video we're going to follow the same steps as we did for the vanilla JavaScript library, but this time using the React JavaScript library, which a lot of modern day SPA applications are written in these days. Again, we're going to use the shortcuts of using the GitHub templates. I also wanted to do this video because the steps are the same, but the tooling for doing this is different. So as before, what we will need is our Azure Static Web Apps prerequisites, which are that we have a Microsoft Azure account and that we are logged in, and that we have a GitHub repository and we are also logged in to that. So this is what we need to do now. So I'm just going to close these other windows, and what we need to do is we're going to use the template again that we've used in previous videos, and I'm just going to copy this URL into the address bar so you can see it. So if I click here and hit this, I'll put this address in the notes to this video, but basically it's github.com/staticwebdev /react-basic/generate. Now this GitHub repository has several getting started templates, and this is just one of them. In the previous video we used the vanilla JavaScript template. This video we're going to use the React one. So this will fire up this page and it will say that it's the Hawaiian shirt coders repository, and then I can give it a name. I'm just going to call this React Static Site, and it seems to be happy with that, which is giving it a tick. Again, you can give a meaningful description to your cloned repository that's going to create. Up to you if you make it public or private. I'm going to make mine private, and then we're going to create the repository from the template. So that will take a few moments, and once it's done we will basically have a copy of the nice template in our own GitHub repository. And all of the actual React stuff lives in source. So as you can see, we've got an app.js, CSS file, an index page, and a SVG. So this looks very React-like, where we are rendering with the React DOM. And we've got some very basic JSX. So that's our basic React template that we get out of the box. This isn't a React course, this is just showing how to use React in conjunction with the static Azure sites. So after we've done that, the next thing we need to do is go to code, and we need to clone the repository. So I'm going to go into here and I'm going to copy this URL, And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do something different, is I am going to go into VS Code. And VS Code is probably the most likely editor that you're going to be doing React work in, as it's got all the useful tooling that goes with it, and most development for sort of JavaScript libraries is done using VS Code. VS Code is free to download. Just do Google for VS Code. It's a Microsoft product. It works on Windows and Mac. Download, it's very small size. Once it's installed, you open it up and it looks like this. And the first thing you need to do is you need to go to the terminal, create a terminal window, and then what you need to do is you need to run a git command to clone your GitHub repository. So you do that with git clone, and then what we've got in the clipboard, which is this react static site.git, and you put it in a location wherever you're happy to put it, somewhere on your hard drive. Now if you run this statement and it doesn't work, it means you haven't got git installed. So that's easily sorted as well, is you go back to a browser and you just do a search for git, and you'll end up at this page, https://git-scm.com/download, and then you pick your version of Git for your operating system. Mine's Windows. I just clicked here. That puts an installer on your machine. You just next through all the various defaults, and that will install Git locally on your machine. You will find that you will need to close VS Code and reopen it again in order for it to take effect. But once you've done all of that, you can put this command in at the terminal, hit enter, and this should clone from your GitHub repository down to your local machine. So if we do a dir and search for React, there we go. There is a copy of the stuff from our GitHub repository, so that's good. The next thing we need to do is a one-off step, if you haven't got it already, is to install an extension that will help us with Azure Static Web Apps within VS Code. So as you can see, I've already got this extension here, but if you haven't, what you need to do is go to View, then pick Extensions, and then in the marketplace search for Azure Static Web Apps, and you can see I've already got it installed, so I don't get an install button, but you just press the install button and that will install it, and you can tell when it's installed because all of a sudden you'll get a new icon on the left hand side. So those are the prerequisites in place. We've got Git installed, and we've pulled down a local copy, and we've installed this useful extension called Azure Static Web Apps for VS Code. So the next thing to do is to make use of this new icon that we've got on the left hand side. So first of all, we click on this, and this will ask you, and again mine is already logged in, to log in if you're not already, or if it hasn't detected it, to your Azure portal site. So basically you'll get asked to put in your username and password, which you use to go into your Azure portal, which is here, and the details are found in the top right hand corner. I'm already logged in, so it sort of recognised me already, and you get various things pop up on there, so that's all good. So once you're logged in, the next thing to do is press F1, and this brings up the Visual Studio command palette, and in here you need to search for create static web app. Once you find that, if you hit enter, and you'll get prompted to ask that you must have a GitHub project open in order to create a static web app. So you can, at this point, you could go off and clone from the actual GitHub, but we've got it locally already, so we just go local project, and then we navigate on our system. So it's, in my case, it was on C, and then users, and then we find our project. React static site. So we pick that and go open, and we say that we trust it, so that's all good. So that's loaded the project in down the left hand side. We'll probably need to go back to our Azure palette again. And the first question that the Azure palette will now ask us, now it knows that we want to do a static Azure static website based on the current project that's loaded into VS Code, is what do we want to call it? I'm quite happy to call it the name that's suggested, React Static Site. Hit enter. Then it wants you to say which zone in Azure to use. I'm going to say Western Europe. Then it's going to want to know the build presets, and this is very similar to if you were walking through on the actual Azure portal. This is a React site, so we pick React. Then it wants to know the location of the code, and we could just say that is the root, which is the /, and then the build location we can leave as build. And you can see down here now this is going to go away and try and create a static web app. Once it's done that, you'll get this pop up, and this should have tied both ends together, and we should be able to go and have a look at the GitHub actions. So if we click on that, our repository opens. It opens in the React static site code base, and it's gone straight to the actions, and here you can see that the build is currently running. If we go over to Azure now and do a refresh, you can see we've also got a React static site. One thing that it has done through the VS Code is it, while we were walking through the wizard, it didn't give us a choice of which resource group that we can put it in, so it's put it in its own resource group called React Static Sites, whereas ideally I would have liked it to go in the same location as the vanilla example, but that's fine in this case. We click on this, everything's looking very similar to before. It's generated a made up URL, so we can click on this, and at the moment, because the build is still going through, we haven't got any content yet, but it's created a placeholder for us. If we go back to the actions, hopefully this will go through. So the build part has worked. Just go back to the site. Is anything happening there? There we go. So we've got our React static website. So just as before, what we can now do is make changes to this from our local machine and push them back into source control and watch the site change again. Now we have a build pipeline in place. So if we go over to here, we can close this. Here's all our React template that we've got from GitHub. If we open this up, we can see under source, here's all the stuff that is to do with React. So we've got an index page, and the index page says please go and render a component called app. So the app component lives in app.js, and we're going to make a slight tweak to this. Is we're going to do away with this constant value of hello world. And what we're going to do is pass in a parameter, so you do that with props in React. And then what I'm going to do is change this to props.name. So basically we're passing a parameter into the app component, and that parameter is called name. So wherever we call app, we need to pass in a parameter as well. So that's in index.js. So we go into here, and here is the tag that will render the components, and here we need to have a property called name, and then we can provide it a value. In this case I'll just hard code the value Fred. So we can save these bits, and then what we can do is you can see on the source control tab it's noticed that there are changes. So what we do here is we push these through, make sure everything's saved. There we go. So we've got 2 changes, and we can write message updated React application, and we can commit that and push. So that's now pushing the changes back up to GitHub. So if we go back to GitHub, have a look at our pipeline again. If we go back to actions, you can see that that has triggered a new build called updated React application. So we'll wait for this to go through, and hopefully we should be able to update our app, and that should say hello Fred rather than hello world. There we go. So it says it's completed successfully. We've got a green tick. We go back to the actual application and go refresh. It's changed to hello Fred. So that's another example of using this. Like I said, it follows the same basic steps as we've had before. So let's just go back to our slides. And that's basically that we create a GitHub repo, and we can use the nice shortcut template at github.com/staticwebdev. We clone the repository down onto our local machine. This time round though, we use different tooling. Rather than Visual Studio, we used VS Code and the command line to issue some command line GitHub commands. We also used an extension in VS Code that we could actually walk through a wizard that would let us fill in the various bits that make up an Azure static web app, which is the same as if we were doing it via the portal. Then finally we made some changes, pushed them through, and we saw the process work from end to end, from local machine to GitHub to Azure. So I'm the Hawaiian shirt coder. Remember, keep learning, keep exploring, keep developing, and please, if you like these videos, please click the like and please subscribe. I'll see you in the next video.